There's a strange trick reality plays on us. The most powerful forces are invisible, yet they shape everything. Gravity doesn't announce itself, but it keeps planets spinning. Wi-Fi has no color or scent, yet it carries voices across oceans. And manifestation, in its quantum sense, follows the same law of invisibility. It's not complicated. It's not hidden in secret formulas. It is disarmingly simple, so simple that the mind, trained to chase complexity, overlooks it. When people first hear about manifestation, they usually imagine rituals, vision boards, or rehearsed affirmations said at just the right time. They try hard to push their desires into the universe, thinking effort equals power. But the real mechanism isn't in the pushing. It's in the subtle alignment beneath effort, the quiet state you embody when no one's looking. That's where the broadcast is made. And here's the paradox. Because the signal is so quiet, it feels like nothing is happening. You send out an identity, a frequency, and reality begins to echo it back. Yet the process is invisible at first, which makes people doubt it, abandon it, and slip back into force. They think they're missing a secret technique, when the truth is they're standing inside it already. The reason it's so hard to see is that we've been conditioned to believe reality responds to effort, logic, and external proof. But the quantum field, the fabric that responds to observation, doesn't wait for proof. It responds to coherence. And coherence doesn't show up as fireworks. It shows up as an inner shift so simple that the mind almost refuses to believe it matters. So the real question isn't, does manifestation work? The real question is, can you slow down enough to notice the invisible simplicity that's been shaping you all along? Think of your life like a radio. The room you're in right now is filled with hundreds of stations, jazz, news, classical, hip-hop, all at once. Yet you don't hear them until you tune the dial. The music isn't created when you tune in. It was already there, waiting. Your choice of frequency just determines what fills your space. Manifestation works the same way. The quantum field is like an infinite spectrum of stations, each one holding a version of you already alive. There's a timeline where you're financially free, a timeline where you're constantly stressed, a timeline where love flows easily. They're all broadcasting at once. The signal you tune to isn't chosen by wishful thoughts alone. It's chosen by what you embody. Here's where most people miss it. They try to think positive while their nervous system is broadcasting fear. They try to visualize abundance while their body is tightened in scarcity. That's like spinning the radio dial with your hand while your antenna is broken. The signal doesn't stabilize. You catch a flash of music, then static. Desire without embodiment equals static. But when you become the signal, when your breath, your posture, your micro decisions begin to carry the tone of the reality you want, you lock into coherence. The dial clicks into place. That's when reality seems to bend toward you, not because you forced it, but because you're finally tuned to the right broadcast. And the fascinating part? The observer effect in physics shows that what we measure, what we expect to see, changes the outcome of experiments. Your nervous system is the measurement device. It decides what version of reality feels most likely, most safe, most expected. That expectation isn't mental alone. It's physiological. It's the way your body says, this is normal. And reality listens to that declaration. So the mechanism isn't about begging the universe. It's about adjusting the dial inside yourself until the signal of your identity matches the station you want to live in. Once you grasp this, the process stops being mysterious. It's simple, strangely simple, which is exactly why so many people miss it. And now comes the uncomfortable question. If it's that simple, why do most people keep chasing hacks and rituals that never work? One of the biggest myths in manifestation is that thinking harder makes it stronger. People treat thoughts like orders barked at reality. If I repeat it enough times, the universe has to obey. But that's not how tuning works. Spinning the radio dial faster doesn't bring the music in clearer. The antenna, the embodied state, is what makes the difference. Picture this. You're waiting for a text from someone you like. You stare at your phone, refreshing the screen, maybe even crafting a dozen unsent replies. On the surface, your thoughts are screaming, they'll text, they like me, it's happening. But underneath, your body is buzzing with doubt. Your stomach is tight. Your chest is on edge. Which signal do you think the field is picking up? The words in your head or the vibration of need in your nervous system. That's the myth that words alone create. In truth, words without embodiment are like singing into a microphone with no speakers plugged in. The sound doesn't travel. Reality hears the baseline frequency you're radiating, not the slogans you're repeating. This is why so many people try to force positivity and then feel secretly ashamed when it doesn't work. They think, I must not be manifesting right. Maybe I don't deserve it. But the problem isn't worthiness. The problem is static. The dial is twisted between two stations, the mental affirmation on one side, the body's fear on the other. The result is interference. Now here's the radical shift. You don't need to silence every negative thought. That's impossible. The station isn't chosen by perfect thinking. It's chosen by coherence. If your body feels safe, your breath steady, your posture aligned, the thoughts can come and go without scrambling the signal. The antenna is solid. That's when the field reflects clarity back. So the myth that manifestation is about constant mental control actually creates the very static that blocks it. Because control breeds tension. Tension scrambles the antenna. And the longer you grip, the less music you hear. What if the text comes not when you're obsessing over it, but when you've relaxed, put your phone down, and started moving through your day as if you're already the version of you who is chosen, loved, and secure? That's when the signal clears. That's when the field reflects. And this opens up a deeper key. It's not the thoughts alone that change the dial. It's the state of your nervous system, the hidden regulator that decides whether you're tuned into static or clarity. Here's the part almost nobody connects. Your nervous system is the antenna. It decides what signal you broadcast into the field. When it's stuck in survival, fight, flight, freeze, the only stations it can tune into are those that match fear, urgency, and lack. It doesn't matter how beautifully you visualize abundance if your body is wired to expect threat. The field echoes the expectation written into your physiology. Think about it. If you're walking into a job interview with your shoulders tense, your breath shallow, your mind racing through worst-case scenarios, you might be saying all the right words. But your presence is tuned to static. The person across from you doesn't consciously think their nervous system is dysregulated. They just feel something off. The room picks up on it. Reality reflects it. That's why the first step in manifestation isn't scripting or affirmations. It's safety. Because when the body feels safe, it relaxes into coherence. The heart and brain sync up, the breath slows, the signal clears. That's when the dial clicks firmly onto the station you've been trying to reach. Let me give you a quick practice. If you're listening now, try it with me. Pause for a moment and drop your shoulders. Exhale slowly through the mouth. Feel the weight of your body against the chair or floor. Bring one hand onto your chest and one hand onto your belly. Inhale gently, not forcing, just letting the air rise into your lower hand first, then your upper hand. Exhale slower than you inhaled. 2 more times. In through the nose, filling from the belly up. Out through the mouth, like you're fogging glass. Notice how the rhythm shifts, how your muscles soften just slightly. That softening is the signal clearing. This isn't about relaxing to manifest. It's about regulating the antenna so the field can actually pick up the broadcast you're sending. The nervous system, once it recognizes safety, expands its range of possible stations. Suddenly, instead of only hearing scarcity or urgency, it can receive abundance, ease, and opportunity. And here's the hidden gift. Coherence doesn't require perfect silence in your mind. You can have doubts. You can have worries. As long as your body returns to a steady baseline, the doubts don't scramble the frequency. The dial stays firm. So before you think about manifesting, think about safety. Safety is the doorway. Coherence is the signal. And from that place, something much deeper becomes possible. You stop manifesting temporary states and begin embodying identities. A lot of people stop at states. They meditate in the morning, feel calm for 20 minutes, then step into their day and the old identity takes back control. States are like visiting a station temporarily. You tune in, hear a song you love, but then static pulls you out and you're back on the old channel. It feels like starting over every single day. But manifestation isn't about catching states. It's about stabilizing an identity. The version of you who already has what you want doesn't live in fleeting moods. They carry a baseline. Their nervous system expects that reality, and that expectation becomes magnetic. Think about someone who seems effortlessly confident. They don't have to pump themselves up before every conversation. Confidence is simply who they are. That identity broadcasts without effort. They walk into a room and people feel it before a word is spoken. That's not a state they enter and exit. It's a frequency they embody. When it comes to manifestation, many of us try to borrow states, gratitude meditations, abundance visualizations, quick hits of positivity. And while those can help, they're training wheels. The deeper work is letting those states accumulate into a baseline identity. In other words, you're not trying to manifest for 10 minutes a day. You're becoming the person whose very normal is already tuned to that station. This is why coherence is so crucial. Without safety, the body won't let an identity shift land. You'll touch it, but won't stabilize it. Safety says, it's okay to live here now. That's when identity roots into your cells. And identity is what collapses timelines. Because the field doesn't just hear what you want, it hears who you are. If your embodied identity says, I am the kind of person who opportunities always find, the field organizes to prove it. If your identity says, I'm someone who has to fight for scraps, the field echoes that instead. This is where the real magic begins. When identity shifts, timelines shift. You're not just chasing moments of alignment. You're selecting a whole new broadcast of reality to live inside. The dial clicks onto a different station entirely. But here's the question that cracks everything open. If identity selects timelines, then what determines which identity becomes available to you in the first place? Every possible version of you is already alive in the field, like stations on a radio dial. You don't create them from scratch, they're already broadcasting. The you who thrives in love, the you who constantly doubts yourself, the you who walks into abundance with ease. Each identity is a channel. The question is, which one does your body believe is home? Identity is the selector. And here's the part that often surprises people. You don't step into a new identity by waiting for external proof. You step into it by embodying the internal proof first. The body doesn't ask, do I see it yet? The body asks, do I feel safe being this now? Once safety is in place, the dial locks onto a new identity, and suddenly you're hearing a completely different broadcast. Let's bring this down to something tangible. Imagine money pressure. A bill is due and your stomach clenches. The mind screams, how will I cover this? In that moment, the station you're tuned to is scarcity. Not because you want to be, but because the identity running the show is someone always on the edge of not enough. From that identity, every action is filtered through urgency. You overthink, you send desperate emails, you spiral. Now imagine the same moment, but from another identity. This version of you has faced bills before and always found a way. They carry a baseline of trust. Their body expects resources to arrive not as a miracle, but as a pattern. From that identity, you open the same bill, take a breath, and calmly plan your next move. Maybe you reach out to a contact, maybe you notice an overlooked source of income, maybe you simply wait with steady energy. The external bill didn't change. The identity behind your signal did. This is the subtle art of timelines. Scarcity identity tunes you into scarcity outcomes. Resourceful identity tunes you into resourceful opportunities. And over time, the timeline you inhabit becomes drastically different. The field doesn't reward desperation. It mirrors coherence. And coherence is established when your nervous system says, this identity is normal now. That's how you collapse timelines. Not by begging for change, but by becoming the version of you who lives on the station where change is already natural. So the real work isn't forcing reality to give you proof. It's letting your body adjust until the new identity feels like home. Once that happens, the timeline shift is inevitable. And now the next challenge arises. How do you rehearse this new identity in daily life without slipping back into static? If identity selects timelines, the next question is obvious. How do you actually rehearse a new identity until it feels like you're normal? Because the brain alone can't do it. You can't just think your way into a new self. You need tools that involve the body, the breath, and the subtle cues your nervous system uses to decide what's real. Let's build a simple toolkit. 4 practices that, when woven together, create a protocol for identity rehearsal. Tool 1. Bridge statements. These are softer than affirmations, designed to reduce inner resistance. Instead of saying, "I am wealthy," while your whole body screams, "No, you're not," you say, "I'm learning how to feel safe with more." Or, "I'm opening to the possibility that support finds me." Bridge statements keep the antenna steady while the signal strengthens, without forcing it into static. Tool 2. Somatic anchors. Every identity has a posture. If your desired self is confident, what do their shoulders look like? How do they breathe? If your desired self is abundant, how do they sit at a table? Practice that posture, that breath, until your body remembers. These anchors tell the nervous system, this is safe, this is normal. Tool 3. Identity rehearsal in micro moments. Instead of waiting for a big event, you practice in small scenes. Walking into a grocery store, you embody the version of you who is grounded and at ease. Sending an email, you embody the version of you who trusts their value. These micro rehearsals stack, and soon the identity isn't a performance, it's baseline. Tool 4. Evening embodiment drill. Before bed, spend 2 minutes imagining your desired self brushing their teeth, folding clothes, or preparing for sleep. Not winning awards or holding millions, just living ordinary moments. When the body sees that identity as normal in daily tasks, it stops feeling like fantasy. Put these together and you have a protocol. Bridge the belief, anchor it somatically, rehearse it in micro moments, and close the day with ordinary embodiment. Over time, this shifts your baseline broadcast. Here's the secret. The universe doesn't need you to be perfect. It only needs coherence. And coherence is built through repetition, safety, and rehearsal until your nervous system sighs in recognition and says, yes, this is who we are now. And let me ask you something directly. Have you noticed the moment you stopped gripping? What you wanted finally showed up? Tell me your story in the comments. It might unlock someone else's leap. But even with these tools, obstacles show up. Urgency, split signals, the temptation to control every outcome. So how do you transmute those traps into clarity instead of static? Even when you begin rehearsing a new identity, 3 obstacles tend to creep in. They're subtle, but they can pull you right back into static if you don't catch them. Let's break them down one by one, and then turn each into a doorway instead of a block. The first trap is urgency. This is the voice that says, if it doesn't happen now, it's never going to happen. Urgency pulls you into survival mode, and survival mode narrows your vision. You stop noticing opportunities because the nervous system is locked on threat. The antidote? Slow time down, literally. When you feel the panic rising, stretch your breath. Walk slower. Speak slower. Send the signal. There is space. Paradoxically, urgency dissolves when you act as if there's no rush. That's when the field can deliver. The second trap is split signals. This is when your words and your embodiment don't match. You're telling yourself, I trust the process, while your body is vibrating with doubt. The field doesn't punish you for this, but it does reflect the confusion. Think of it like 2 stations bleeding into each other. One song overlaid with another, impossible to enjoy. The fix isn't to crush the doubt, it's to integrate it. You say, yes, part of me is afraid, and I can still choose coherence. By acknowledging both, you unify the broadcast. The static clears because you've stopped pretending one half of the signal doesn't exist. The third trap is over-control. This one shows up when you grip so tightly that you suffocate the outcome. You micromanage every step, checking constantly for proof, refusing to release the dial. But manifestation doesn't respond to over-control. The field responds to trust. The way through is loosening your grip. Literally. When you notice yourself over-controlling, drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, let your palms open. Physical release creates energetic release. And that open posture signals, I'm willing to receive instead of strangle the flow. What's fascinating is that each of these traps contains its own medicine. Urgency teaches you presence. Split signals teach you honesty with yourself. Over-control teaches you surrender. Instead of treating them as failures, you treat them as reminders of the next layer of embodiment. Every obstacle becomes feedback. Every static moment becomes a chance to refine the antenna. And when you practice this refinement not just in rituals, but in ordinary life, walking, eating, talking, the coherence begins to spread everywhere. which leads to the next breakthrough: integration in the most ordinary, unglamorous moments of daily living. The real test of manifestation isn't how you feel during meditation, it's how you carry yourself while brushing your teeth, walking down the street, or answering a casual message. That's where coherence either stabilizes or slips. Because ordinary life is where your nervous system builds its baseline. Let's take walking. Most people walk as if they're rushing to arrive somewhere else, their body tilted forward, breath shallow, mind racing. That posture is a broadcast. It says, "I'm behind. I'm chasing." But what if you practiced walking as the version of you who already feels on time, already feels chosen, already feels safe? Shoulders back, chin lifted, stride steady. Suddenly, a mundane action becomes a rehearsal for identity. Or eating. How often do we shovel food in without presence, scrolling through our phones at the same time? That rhythm tells the body, there isn't enough, I have to hurry. Contrast that with eating slowly, savoring, giving your system the signal. Abundance is normal here. Each bite becomes an embodiment drill, teaching your nervous system a new broadcast. Even conversations are opportunities. If someone asks, "How's everything going?" do you launch into stress and complaints automatically? Or do you pause, breathe, and answer from the version of you who knows they are resourced and supported? You don't have to fake perfection. You just broadcast coherence by speaking from steadiness instead of frenzy. This is what daily integration looks like. Not rituals you escape into, but micro moments you live from. And here's the magic. The more ordinary you make coherence, the less your nervous system treats it as a fragile state. It stops being something you visit. It becomes the new home frequency. When you embody this in walking, eating, speaking, even in the silences between actions, you're telling the field, this is who I am everywhere. That level of consistency is what collapses timelines faster than anything else. Because reality doesn't just reflect what you do in rituals, it reflects what you embody when you're not trying. So coherence in daily life isn't optional, it's the foundation. It's how the new identity sticks. And once that foundation is in place, the station can expand beyond you, shaping relationships, creativity, health, and even your sense of purpose. Which raises the next question. If coherence can transform the ordinary, what happens when you apply it to the biggest domains of your life? Once coherence becomes your baseline in the small, invisible moments, something powerful happens. It starts spilling over into the larger domains of your life. Relationships shift. Creativity unlocks. Even your health begins to reflect the new signal, because the field doesn't separate big from small. It just mirrors the broadcast you send, everywhere at once. Take relationships. When your nervous system is steady, you stop approaching people from need or fear. You're not trying to grab approval, not bracing for rejection. Instead, you show up with openness. That coherence is magnetic. People feel safer around you, which deepens connection without effort. It's not charm, it's resonance. In creativity, the shift is just as dramatic. Many people wait for inspiration to strike, but when your body is coherent, creative flow becomes more natural. Why? Because coherence frees energy that was previously trapped in survival mode. Instead of scanning for threats, your nervous system can now channel into expression, problem solving, and innovation. Suddenly, what once felt like a block begins to move. Health also reflects the broadcast. Stress physiology keeps the body in chronic contraction, signaling scarcity at a cellular level. But coherence relaxes that pattern. Breath deepens, digestion improves, immune function stabilizes. You're literally embodying abundance at the biological level. And then there's purpose. When coherence is present, your actions stop being driven purely by fear of lack. They start to emerge from alignment. Choices feel less like survival strategies and more like natural extensions of who you are becoming. That's when purpose stops being a mystery and starts being the obvious next step. Let's ground this in a real scenario. Imagine you're an athlete preparing for a big performance. If you step onto the field with your body buzzing with tension, overthinking every move, your station is tuned to fear of failure. Even if you've trained for months, the static blocks flow. But if you walk out coherent, breath steady, posture relaxed, nervous system signaling safety, your body remembers what it already knows. You move fluidly, almost effortlessly. The performance emerges as a broadcast of the identity you've rehearsed, not a battle against fear. This is the same across domains. Relationships, art, work, health, purpose, each one bends in response to the station you inhabit. When the signal is coherent, expansion isn't forced. It's inevitable. But there's one more layer. Beyond identity, beyond timelines, beyond personal expansion. There's the recognition that coherence itself connects you with something larger, something intelligence-like that seems to move with you once you align. At a certain point, you realize manifestation isn't just about shaping your personal outcomes. It's about aligning with a larger intelligence that has been humming underneath everything all along. When you're coherent, it feels less like you're forcing reality, and more like reality is flowing through you, carrying you where you were always meant to go. This is the paradox. The deeper your identity shift, the less you need to grip. Control begins to fall away, not because you've given up, but because you've tapped into something greater. And that surrender doesn't feel like weakness. It feels like trust. It feels like strength. Physics hints at this with the observer effect. The act of attention influences what unfolds. But the observer isn't separate from the field. They are part of it. The same is true with you. You're not standing outside the universe trying to bend it. You are the universe, tuning itself into coherence through your nervous system, your breath, your choices. When you taste this truth, surrender stops feeling like loss. It feels like stepping into rhythm with a song that's been playing long before you could hear it. The radio wasn't silent. You just weren't tuned in. Now, instead of forcing your own soundtrack, you find yourself harmonizing with something wider, more intricate, more alive. And here's where many people stumble. They confuse surrender with passivity. They think it means waiting on the couch, hoping the universe drops miracles in their lap. But surrender is active. It's a full-bodied yes. It's walking forward without clinging to outcomes, trusting that the intelligence flowing through you knows where to land. This is why coherence is not only practical, it's spiritual. It reintroduces you to your own wholeness and to the possibility that life itself is conspiring with you when you're aligned. That realization changes how you see setbacks, delays, and even silence. Instead of panic, you feel timing. Instead of resistance, you feel rhythm. And if you've ever had a moment where something arrived out of nowhere the moment you stopped gripping, a call, a chance encounter, a sudden solution, you've already glimpsed this paradox. Surrender is not weakness. It's the gateway into strength beyond your own, which leads us to the final piece, the resolution. If coherence is tuning, if identity is the dial, and surrender is the rhythm, how do we bring it all together into one final image that stays with you long after this ends? So here we are. You've seen the arc, from the invisibility of the signal, to the nervous system as antenna, to states, identity, timelines, obstacles, daily integration, and finally surrender. All of it weaving back to one truth. Manifestation isn't complicated, it's coherent, and coherence is simple. Imagine standing in a room where a radio hums with static. You spin the dial anxiously, trying to force a song into being. Nothing stabilizes. That's how most people live, gripping, doubting, scrambling for proof. But now imagine setting the radio down, taking a breath, letting your body relax as if the music is already playing, and then gently, you turn the dial, not with desperation, but with steadiness. Suddenly, the static clears. A melody rises, full, effortless, inevitable. That melody isn't created in that moment. It was always there waiting. The shift was never about begging the music to exist. It was about tuning yourself so you could hear it. That's manifestation. Not with force, with frequency. The simplicity is what makes it so hard to see. Because the mind wants effort, proof, complexity. But the field only asks one thing. Who are you being right now? Not in your words, but in your breath, your posture, your micro-decisions, your daily rhythm. That is your broadcast. That is the station you live on. So the invitation is this. Stop chasing the next ritual or secret formula. Start noticing the music that's already playing beneath the static. Tune with your body. Rehearse the identity until it feels like home. Walk, breathe, eat, speak from that place. and watch as timelines shift not through struggle, but through resonance. Because the field isn't waiting for your effort, it's waiting for your coherence. And the moment you become the signal, reality has no choice but to sing back.